welcome.
Let's go, Nick!
Hey guys, it's Nate, representing the swim team, the Somebody Voice. So one of the things we're really excited about on the swim team right now is state. So if you can come watch that at the BYU, you should totally come watch it tomorrow.
It's also live on KSL.
And it's live on KSL. But what we're even more excited about is next year. Swim team. If you are even interested in swimming or want to even try swimming, it doesn't matter if you can swim, if you've never swam before, freshman, senior, come talk to Coach Steffen, Coach Steffen, talk to a swim team member. Let's get more bodies, let's get more swimming guys. Very much. Join the
Everybody's trying to save you.
All right, swimmers are participating in their state tournament tomorrow, so give them a big hand of good welcome. Oh, come on, we can do better than that. Good job. There's also an incredibly awesome performance that is going to be on our stage here in the next few days. Our drama program has got Sense and Sensibility going, so get a date, show up, and enjoy the heck out of a great show. They've done a great job with that. All right, so we're going to start today off. We've got, we're the Aviators, right? Yes? You guys don't respond well to a disembodied voice. Thank you. I love you, random citizens. Yeah, never mind. So, we're the Aviators, and one of the things that we're excited to keep building up here at our school is our aviation program. And we've got one of our teachers here today, Mr. Groom. He's down there in the front row with his family. So if you see a cute little girl running around, that's his daughter. Wave down there. Stand up and wave. Awesome. So, Mr. Groom's going to be talking to us today. He's done a ton of stuff in aviation himself. He's going to share a little bit about that with you. We wanted to start you guys off with a little video. This is from Lockheed Martin. They're one of the richest companies in the whole entire world. They do a ton of stuff in the aerospace, aeronautics industry. So this should open you up to a little bit of some of the possibilities that are out there when it comes to aviation.
At Lockheed Martin, we are on a mission. Your mission. The one that lives depend on. The one the future depends on. The one that's unlocking new energy sources. Or the one that's uncovering enemy locations. Whether it's on the front lines, at sea, in the air, in cyberspace, outer space, or on the cutting edge of science, your mission should never be taken lightly. That's why, when millions of people are counting on you, you can count on us to build the impossible, to invent the inconceivable, to imagine new ways to get where you need to go, and give you tools that help you finish the job when you get there, to innovate, create, and solve every problem with speed and reliability. Because we know that missions aren't about getting around to it. They're not about crossing your fingers. They're about getting it done. They're about getting in, getting what you need, and getting home safely. Every mission is an expedition of the greatest importance, both to you and to us.
Alright, good morning everybody. Alright, good morning everybody. Okay. Good morning everybody. So why are we showing you a video on Lockheed Martin? It's basically to show you what you're capable of. Okay? Lockheed Martin is involved in pretty much everything. Aerospace, aviation, space flight, all that kind of stuff. It's all the solar panels they had up there, there's all the solar technology. We wanted to give you just a sneak peek of what is ahead of you all, okay? So once again, my name is Matthew Groom. I'm one of your CT instructors at Career Technical Education. I help facilitate the Central Utah University aviation courses after school on Thursdays. Those are online courses that are offered, and UVU also offers their face-to-face courses during the day. But just a quick background about myself. So here we go. Got the volume turned up. Thanks. So I used to be an airline pilot. I was 16 when I learned how to fly. I flew an airplane by myself before I drove a car by myself on my 16th birthday. I was 18 when I became a commercial pilot. 18 when I became a flight instructor. I'm still a flight instructor today, so I've been doing it for about 20 years, 19 years. I was an airline pilot for an airline out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I flew a turbojet aircraft called the CRJ-200. It has 50 passengers in the back, and did that for about 2 years before I became an air traffic controller. So we're going to kind of talk about that stuff today for a little bit, but first we're going to have kind of an activity. I need everybody to raise their hand who's been on an airplane in the last year. In the last year. Okay, I need 5 volunteers to think about that flight that you were on. Think about what was cool about it, what was not cool about it, and we're going to talk about it, okay? So keep your hands up. Those of you who've been on a flight in the last year, okay, you come on up. You're going to come up to the stage. Come on. Come on up. Okay, there's 4. We need 1 over here. All right, come on up. And Nate should be coming down with the second mic. Okay, let's all go on up to the stage so everybody can see us here. All right. So we're going to think about these flights you were on. And I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay, and then I'm going to have you represent somebody in the industry. So, yeah. What's your name? Mel? Okay, so where did you depart from and where did you fly to? Okay. All right, Salt Lake, Boston. So that's kind of a far flight. That's about 3.5, 4 hours, right? Was it smooth? Was it rough? What do you think? Okay.
Hold the mic closer to your mouth.
We had to
hear you.
make
Thank you.
Okay, so there were thunderstorms along the way, and there was turbulence, right? Bumpy rides, we don't want that. So who do you think is helping the pilot out in figuring out what the weather is going to be like along the route? Correct, there's the dispatcher, right? That's called the dispatcher, that's good. The dispatcher is relying not only on themselves, their own knowledge, but the National Weather Service, okay? So there you have 3 people involved in that decision as far as how to handle the weather. You have the pilot, you have the dispatcher, you have the National Weather Service. Okay, thank you. All right, where did you depart from and where'd you go? Okay, Denver to Utah. Okay, was it, how was the landing? Was it a smooth landing or was it really rough? It was rough? Okay, so we call that an aircraft carrier landing when that happens. It's not all the time we landed safely, or we always landed safely pretty much, but landed smoothly, I should say. Okay, so who's responsible for trying to make that smooth landing? Who is that? The pilot or the co-pilot, right? Normally the pilot will land the aircraft when they're flying to the outstation, and when they're flying back to the larger airport, it's normally the first officer that's flying, okay? Perfect, thanks. All right, where'd you depart from? Where'd you go?
From Seattle to China.
Seattle to China, okay. How long was that flight?
12 hours.
12 hours, okay. Who took care of you during that flight? Who made sure you had what you needed? You had drinks?
Church that give you free drinks.
Right, okay, so the drinks and the food you get, and the blankets and pillows and all that kind of stuff, that's the flight attendant, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the flight attendant's there to take care of us on the flight, make sure we're safe. Ultimately, their highest responsibility is to make sure everybody on board the aircraft is safe. and that they can evacuate the aircraft in the event of an emergency, all that kind of stuff. So perfect. Okay, where'd you depart from and where'd you go?
I departed from Salt Lake and I landed in Los Angeles.
Salt Lake to LA. Okay, so not too long, like an hour, hour and a half maybe?
Yeah,
Did you climb really fast or really slow? Do you remember?
it was faster than one of my other flights.
It was fast? Okay. So this is kind of a tougher, more difficult question, but who do you think designed that wing that made that airplane climb super fast? Who do you think that was? What would you call that?
I don't know.
It's kind of a tough one. So that's an aeronautical engineer, okay? So an engineer, those are the people that design the airplanes, okay? So, perfect, thank you. Okay, where'd you depart from? Where'd you go?
I departed from Salt Lake and I landed in Seattle.
In Seattle, okay. Did you have a window seat? Were you looking outside the window? Okay. Could you see the top of the wing at all?
No. It was
Okay.
like near the front. I think it was in the
Okay, you're by the front. So maybe when you were getting on the airplane, did you kind of take a quick look at it from the outside, or maybe even on the inside? Were there like chairs falling over and like pieces coming off the airplane, or did it look?
It looked good.
It looked intact. It looked good. It was safe. So who's responsible to make sure the airplane's put together? Perfect. Right. So it's the mechanics, right? We call those guys airframe and power plant mechanics. So perfect. All right. Let's give these people a round of applause. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so why did we do that little exercise? That's just 5, those are, we actually had more, 5, 6, or 7 separate positions within the aviation industry other than pilot, okay? A lot of people think of just the pilot. There's a lot more to it than that, okay? We didn't even go over one, which is a very important one. I'm a part of it, is air traffic control, okay? So, up front here, what is air traffic control? What do you think? What's air traffic control? I'm picking on you. Yeah?
People that are like, yo, there's an airplane right there, and there's an airplane right there. We don't want them running into each other.
Perfect. Okay. So I work for the Federal Aviation Administration. I've been with them for about 12 years. And the number one job of the FAA is safety of the American public when they travel in the air, okay? They also are in charge of the entire air traffic control system. So when you are flying from Seattle to Salt Lake to Boston, wherever you're going, you are being controlled by an air traffic controller, okay? So that's what I do. My job is to prevent 2 airplanes from getting too close to each other, to increase safety, to increase the efficiency of the airspace, because a lot of times in these busy airports like here at Salt Lake, we have 80 airplanes that want to land at the airport at the same time. Okay, that obviously cannot happen. That's way too many. We can land about 80 in 1 hour. So what we do is we manage the flow and efficiency of airplanes going in and out of the airport, and we keep the airplanes a minimum distance away from each other, so that they stay safe, obviously, because a pilot cannot always see outside the airplane. Sometimes they're flying in clouds, right? They're flying in weather like today, they can't even see half a mile in front of them. So they rely on air traffic control to keep them separated, okay? We're going to time. So, I want to give you a quick story. This happened on Monday, this past Monday. I was at the air traffic control tower at Salt Lake International Airport. I was in the radar room at the bottom of that tower. What happened on Monday? Anybody know? Snow day. That's right. You think there's a snow day for the FAA? There's a snow day at the control tower? Sometimes, I guess it'll slow down completely, but we still had a lot of traffic in the airspace and we had a lot of bad weather, okay? Now, with the conditions being like they were, we had moisture in the air and we had freezing air temperatures, and that's conducive to cause what's called aircraft icing. Aircraft icing is simply put, ice will start to build on the leading edges of the aircraft. okay? So we had what's called a Cessna Caravan that departed Salt Lake International. They were going to Twin Falls, Idaho. I was not the controller working the aircraft at the time, but I was working what's called a flow position, so I was kind of monitoring the entire control room, making sure everybody had what they needed to keep the airspace flowing and to make sure things were staying safe, right? So I was kind of on a observation standpoint, I guess. And the controller called me over and says, "Hey Matt, I need your help over here." She knew that I had pilot experience. This particular controller did not have any recent flight experience. They knew that I was still flying, and so I came over and helped them out and realized they had a Cessna Caravan that was trying to go to Twin Falls, and it turned around and came back, and they were getting structural icing on the aircraft. They ended up having about 1.5 inches of ice that built up on the leading edge of the wing, and that does two things. It makes the airplane a lot heavier, and it makes it way less aerodynamic. Okay, so the airplane actually starts to fall. Okay, if they don't monitor their airspeed correctly, and the pilot was starting to freak out a little bit. I was talking to him on the radio. I got on the radio, started talking to him. He was getting scared. In that time of emergency and time of being extremely hectic and chaotic, he was starting to kind of freak out a little bit. Okay, he needed some help. So I started talking to him. I knew what kind of aircraft he was flying. I asked him to start turning on a few of the switches that I was familiar with of that aircraft. And that kind of cued him in to run through some of his checklists, okay? He did notify us he was stalling the aircraft. He was below what's called the minimum vectoring altitude, which is the lowest altitude we can give, reference the terrain, the ground level. So he was in an emergency condition, okay? And the controller and I that I was assisting, we were talking to him, and basically we were running out of options of what to do for this guy. But that cueing him in to, hey, turn on your pitot heat, okay? Pull your alternating static switch, that type of stuff. It allowed him to run through that emergency checklist and get the airplane back under control to the point of where he can come back into Salt Lake International. He landed safely about 20 minutes later, okay? We talked to him afterwards on the phone. He was safe. He was a little bit shook up, but he was okay, all right? And why am I telling you this story? On the bottom left, clarity is one of our core values here at Cedar Valley. How many of you are working on trying to get into college and working on your ACTs and stuff? Is it stressful? Is it super easy? I mean, it's not always the easiest thing, right? There's stress, there's chaos. What I want to let you know is just like that pilot, he's a professional. He's doing this for his career. He was in a chaotic situation that was causing stress, and he reached out for help, okay? That controller that was working, they were getting stressed by the situation. They reached out to me for help, okay? And then I was reaching out to my peers for help to the point of where we got this pilot what they needed to return safely to Salt Lake International 20 minutes later, okay? The same thing applies for you at this stage in your life, okay? If things are chaotic, if things are hectic, if you're trying to worry about getting into college, doing your ACT, all that kind of stuff, just be patient, ask for help, and look for those around you to help you out, okay? So that lesson not only will apply here, it applies, like I said, and throughout whatever career you go into, it applies in mine definitely as an air traffic controller, but I want to end it just with a few minutes. We've got like 2-3 minutes. Does anybody have any questions regarding aviation in general? The courses that are offered here, so we have 2 programs with aviation. We have the UVU program, which is offered face-to-face with an instructor here during the day. You do have registration coming up for next year. You do have classes available next year for you for aviation, and they do count towards college credit. And they're only $15 a class, okay? Extremely discounted. SUU also offers a few online courses that I facilitate once a week after school. So, does anybody have any questions regarding the classes or anything aviation, how to become something? Nobody? Got one back there. Do you have a question? No, you're just raising your hand? Okay. All right, well, if anybody has any interest in figuring out what is this aviation thing all about, why are we doing this as a school, why is it science, technology, engineering, math, why are we focusing on that, feel free to talk to your counselor. Like I said, registration's coming up over the next few weeks. Make sure to look into it, see if it's something you want to do, and we'll try to facilitate you getting into the courses. And I can promise you it's a very rewarding career. I've been in it for about, like I said, about 16, 17 years now. It's a blast. I've had a lot of fun with it. So appreciate your time and have a good rest of the day, I guess.